All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe how we look at trench warfare. When we think of the Western Front during World War I, our minds almost immediately go to artillery, geopolitical strategy, and shifting borders. But today, we're going to look at something completely unexpected, yet absolutely fundamental to the human experience, and that is personal hygiene.
Before we even touch on military tactics or the geopolitics of the Great War, I want you to ask yourself a very human question. What do you think a soldier actually valued most amidst the absolute sensory deprivation and unrelenting horror of the front line?
Well, Chaplain Owen Spencer Watkins kind of hit the nail on the head. He noted, "The only thing left that we really need is a hot bath. And how much we need that, nobody knows but them. Watt has been through the same mill." For men pushed to their absolute physical and mental limits, a simple hot wash became so much more than just getting clean. It became a critical tool for survival and really, for preserving their humanity. To truly grasp that desperation, we have to establish their horrific daily reality. Section 1. The baseline of misery: mud, muck, and exhaustion.
You know, this muck wasn't just on the ground. It was an all-consuming environment. Private Edward Squire painted a terribly vivid picture of this in a letter back home in January of 1915. He simply wrote, "We stand in mud, sleep in mud, eat mud, wear mud."
So, when you combine this unavoidable, persistent mud with freezing cold weather and melting ice, continual service, sheer exhaustion, nowhere to actually rest or sleep, and just rampant rats and vermin, you get a baseline of total misery. And what's astonishing is that the British Army went to war in 1914 with absolutely no infrastructure whatsoever for washing men or their clothes.
But beyond the visible mud, they faced something even worse. Section 2. The invisible enemy, the terror of lice. This was a foe that inflicted constant physical and mental torment on the troops, making the already unbearable trenches an absolute living nightmare.
Just look at this tiny number, less than 5%. That represents the fraction of frontline soldiers in a given unit who are actually lice-free. Because of the super-confined quarters of trench warfare and the constant mingling of fresh recruits, the infestation was practically unavoidable. If you were on the front line, you were almost certainly infested.
This elevates the lice problem from a pesky nuisance to a genuine terror of war. Colonel A. A. Martin actually wrote in 1915 that he would group them in the same class as shrapnel bombs and high explosives. Seriously, they cause deadly diseases like typhoid and trench fever. In fact, the sheer fear of lice kept a lot of men from even enlisting in the first place.
Which brings us to a major turning point. Section 3. The euphoria of cleanliness, the reaction to the bath.
Driven by absolute desperation, officers in the Royal Army Medical Corps took some incredible initiative. They repurposed local linen factories and built large-scale steam chambers. So, picture this typical bathing experience for an enlisted man. First, you might wait up to 6 months just for your turn. When you finally arrive, you hand over your filthy, lice-infested uniform. Then, you stand in a 102-degree hot steam chamber for exactly 5 minutes. Next, you pass under a warm shower, followed by a lukewarm one, and finally you receive a clean, freshly ironed shirt. It sounds simple, but this cleansing process completely transformed these men from the inside out.
The physical and psychological relief was immediate and overwhelming. We have letters and diaries from the time showing marching companies of soldiers singing joyfully just from the sensation of being clean. One deeply appreciative soldier called it simply a godsend, good as a furlough.
Men who had been completely demoralized by the horrific conditions around them suddenly felt revitalized. Another soldier boasted that he felt equal to 40 Germans. Now, I don't know about 40, but the simple luxury of a wash absolutely restored their fighting spirit completely. It acted as a massive, instantaneous boost to morale.
But, there was also a really tragic irony to it all. As one man poignantly noted, it seems a shame to go back to the trenches and get killed after that. That reaction perfectly captures how a bath briefly returned them to civilization and humanity. It made the harsh reality of the war they were fighting even more jarring when they had to head back to the front.
And the sheer desperation for cleanliness was just overwhelming. When official baths weren't available, men wouldn't just wait around. They would strip down and literally scrub themselves in freezing crater water just to wash away the mud and feel human again.
So what happens when there are no craters or official baths? Section 4. Ingenuity and self-help, taking matters into their own hands. Because official water supplies were incredibly unreliable. I mean, sometimes troops went weeks without even washing their hands. They seized absolutely every single opportunity they could to clean themselves, showing incredible resourcefulness.
Soldiers got incredibly resourceful. You'd find men boiling their lice-infested shirts in old sanitation oil drums scavenged from local barns. Or you'd find them taking joyful, impromptu swims in weed-filled, freezing French rivers. Whether it was boiling laundry in rusted drums or braving icy waters for a quick bathe, these resourceful acts provided essential mental relief and a really deep sense of camaraderie among the men.
However, this pursuit of cleanliness also starkly exposed the military structure. Section 5. Officers versus the ranks, the hierarchy of hygiene.
The disparity here was huge. Enlisted men were crowding into repurposed industrial vats, washing in freezing shell holes, or waiting up to 6 months for just 5 minutes of steam. Meanwhile, officers often lived a vastly different reality. They had servants, called batmen, drawing hot water for them. They could use their privilege to secure porcelain hospital baths or even visit local convents for a soak, frequently followed by post-bath restaurant dinners. It really grounds the reality of wartime privilege amidst all that shared suffering.
Which brings us to a final, provocative thought to leave you with today. If a simple bath could restore a soldier's humanity and morale amidst the cosmic murder of World War I, how does that reframe our understanding of what it actually takes to survive a war? Ultimately, digging into their desperate pursuit of hygiene forces us to see these soldiers not just as uniformed fighters in the mud, but as human beings, desperately trying to wash away the horrors of war. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the history you think you know.